When the African came here to Virginia in 1619, they came here as enslaved people, and they brought their culture with them. And we say, we have the saying, they came here empty-handed, but certainly not empty-headed. So they brought their culture and their knowledge with them, and that includes music.
And so you can imagine an enslaved person, he sees that a barrel is being discarded, and you put two and two together. He just needs some skin. It could come from, possum, squirrel, rabbit. He can't get antelope skin like you would have in West Africa. You take the skin and stretch it across the drum, and then you've got something that you can recreate a rhythm with.
But most importantly, what it's designed to do is if some masters had problems with their enslaved people playing traditional music, they can disguise the music by turning the barrel over, and it just looks like a regular barrel, and then they're none the wiser.
The African American interpretation site, the Randolph site, had asked if I would be willing to make a drum of an African design representing something that would have been used in the 18th century. The barrel itself was made here. It was actually one I made about 5 years ago and had been used in one of the brewing programs here. So it was a perfect example of an older used cask in this particular situation. We got 3 hides coming from out of Ghana. They are cow hides. So once I got the hides, I had to dehair them, and that's scraping it off with a knife. Then at that point, I needed to soak it in water for a minimum of 4 hours. For this one that we saw today, I started soaking it last night in water and then pulling it out of the water, stretching it over the barrel. I also needed to puncture holes, which using a punch and the hammer to allow for us to tap the tacks into place to help hold that head into place. Because as the hide is put on wet, to get that proper tension, as it dries, it'll harden and start getting tighter. We didn't want that to pull the hoop off. It's just what's keeping it in place.
Well, when the black music program began in the 1980s, it was an evening program, and Rex Ellis, at that point, he worked with the Smithsonian Institute to bring down an expert to help them learn how to play a couple of traditional West African rhythms and to play them correctly. And one of the drums they had was a drum similar to what we have at the Randolph House. It was much bigger. It was a barrel drum, simply skin stretched on the top. And I think Rex was trying to maintain, again, some sense of authenticity, that when people would come upon that performance, they would see that type of drum and they could say, ah, yes, that's probably what it looked like in the 18th century if they had a drum. The drum at the Randolph House, the barrel drum at the Randolph House, is going to help our guests understand how enslaved people, even though they could not bring their drums with them or various objects with them, that they could take found objects and recreate things that were important to them. I believe that's what's going to help our guests discover the various ways in which African descent people, carrying it on from ear to ear, from generation to generation, could carry on the beliefs and the values of their ancestors.
Music was very important for these enslaved people because living under these circumstances, not having rights and privileges, knowing that this was going to be forever until they passed on, they needed some kind of way to heal, some kind of way to get through a day, and music was one of those ways. Even if it was just for a few hours that they came together and they forgot for one moment their plight or their circumstance, and music could bring so many people together throughout Virginia.